What's up, everybody? Here we go. It's another year, and as is tradition, Apple has a conference every year just so Leo and I can get together and talk about it, right, Leo?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's been a long day.
So, yeah, right? A very long day. And so quickly introduce yourself for the compulsory audience. I'm sure anyone in the development field knows who you are, but please introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Leo Dion. I run the podcast EmpowerApps. And I am a freelance developer in the Apple Swift space. I run a company called Bright Digit. Yeah, and stuff. And things.
Yeah, and stuff. Yeah. So we're gonna talk about the keynote today. We sat and eagerly went through, scribbling notes as we go so that you all didn't have to for the keynote. And we have lots to talk about, and we've tried to break that list down so that we don't keep you here for the next 2 weeks just talking about this, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
Leo, do you want to kick it off? Let's start by saying that there was a lot this year. I was actually surprised just how many things I was like, ooh, that's good.
So there's a lot of good stuff, especially in iOS. And they're definitely trying to move the iPad to a more pro user stuff. There's oddly enough, there's two pieces of hardware, which I found to be a little bit strange how they inserted that in. But I would have never predicted that. But in the way they did it, there's some stuff that they didn't mention I think people were wishing for, I noticed, which we can get into later. But yeah, it's another year. We'll get into the iOS stuff, but yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on iOS, surprisingly.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff on, I'm going to say, most of the platforms. There was, interestingly, we'll get into it later on, and you folks should definitely check out when we talk about State of the Union over on Leo's podcast. Some things that were not platforms that were not touched on in the keynote that I thought was interesting, but we'll just leave that there for now. Should we go ahead and dive straight in?
Yeah. The first bullet we had was watchOS. I was mildly disappointed.
Okay.
And I don't know. Maybe it's a hardware thing, but I kind of wanted more. Watch faces and more things like that. I am impressed with the running things that they added as far as comparing your runs each time. I thought that was cool. Good form running and teaching you to run properly. I've taken that class, so I was I knew exactly what they were talking about. Yeah, so that was really cool. And then just continuing to up the sleep stuff. I wear my Apple Watch at night. I have a Series 3, which I don't even know. I should look. Maybe I should look before we do our half. But I don't even know if Series 3 is still supported. I'm going to look that up right now. But yeah, I don't know.
I think it is.
watchOS was interesting. It is?
I think you're still right there at the end. Now, next year, I think you may have a problem. I think it's still on the map for this year. Yeah.
It's so disappointing. I was wishing that it would not be supported.
Well, you know what? If you want, we can just re-edit this, and I can say, no, it's not supported. You totally need to get a new one.
Yeah, no, I'm totally going to double check that because that's kind of disappointing because the issue is that the Series 3 is the last 32-bit processor we still have to support in Swift. So yeah. No,
and that's a big deal for you, right?
It's not supported on Series 3. It's not support. It's not.
Oh, okay. So there you go. So
Series
you
4, 5, SE, 6, and 7. So, yes, good.
You got your wish.
I'm so glad they don't support the Series 3 anymore. That's the best news of watchOS. You're not a big watchOS person, are you?
I'm not. It's funny. I've often said about, I've got the latest series, right?
Okay.
And I love it. Don't get me wrong. This is one of those things where any day I'm not wearing it, I totally realize why I'm wearing one. But I'm not a big one for developing against it because it's just not fitted into kind of the kind of apps that I make.
Right.
Now, that said, it becomes year on year, I start to feel more pressure that it's getting more useful, but I still think there's that cap of, yeah, but it's only good for these things. Now, you squarely fit in that category, right? So you have every reason to be.
I've built
on that
more
platform.
apps for the watch probably than for the iPhone at this point. So I think for me, like the watch faces, I want more complex watch faces. I'm not so sure that we got that. I'm just kind of looking at them.
No.
So they do the same
There's
thing
only
where
one.
they have. Yeah. Well, there's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's four new ones, but there's only one that I thought was like, oh, that's cool.
The Metropolitan, right?
That's the one.
Basically, like, and I don't know what their philosophy is, because for me, it's like, I want a watch face with a lot of information on there. And like, they just don't. They provide these like quirky ones, which is fine, but that's not what I wanted my Apple Watch for. So
now,
I don't know what's going on there.
So here's a question for you, because I suspect then you may do what I do, because I have the same thing, right? There are times of the day I need data, and there are other times like when I go to bed and it's like, I'm not wearing my glasses, just show me a really huge watch face. So I switch between the two. Is that something that you do?
I have two watches. Or? That's what I do.
Okay.
I have two watches. So I have a Series 6 and I have a Series 3. The Series 3 is the bedtime one with the really basic watch face. So I kind of do the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and on that too, because I do wear mine at night unless I forget to charge it. So I'm very interested in the sleep thing, because I know my sleep patterns. I'm a developer. My sleep patterns are terrible, right? But now I'm like, great, and I'll have the data to back it up,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to get into iOS 16. Can we get into it?
Let's do it. Let's dive into it, because I think there's a lot more to talk about on this one.
Yes. Yeah, there's a lot.
Now,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to jump in straight off the bat and say, oh my gosh, Apple, about time I can actually truly customize somewhat my home screen. About dang time, right?
I'm interested in how they can use. I put it on a couple of my other iPhones, but I want to test out the whole like portrait mode photos and how you could put the text behind the head, whatever's in focus. Like that looks really cool. That's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
And then being able to like, I don't know if they said that, but maybe you can like swap photos. There's like a shuffle mode where it'll like change the photos. That's awesome.
I think
that's really sweet. Yeah.
I think they said throughout the day. So I don't know if they're preset, times. You know how it is with Apple. They say it and then they sort of slip in throughout the day and move on. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. What did that mean?
And will it even be in 16.0, 16.1, 16.2 with the way things are?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you think, one thing I was just thinking about, do you think this means that the iPhone 14 will have an always-on screen?
Oh, it's surely it's got to, right?
You think so? Because now that I'm thinking about it, they're doing all this work on the lock screen. It's like, are they going to put like an always-on lock screen on the 14? Yeah, right. Yeah. And I don't know how they figured out the power savings on that, but yeah, it seems like that's kind of the direction they want to go.
Well, and what's making me think that is a couple of things. And I think kind of an underlying thing this year, and I'm going to touch on this now, is how each of the platforms are picking up some of the experimentation of other platforms throughout the years. And I think this is a prime example. The reason I think that we will get an always-on screen is because of the what did they call it? The live, like the live widgets. Mm-hmm. And I felt it's like, oh, you're totally picking that up.
Live stream or live stream? Live activities?
Something like that. Yeah, I got a note here somewhere. But yes, and I thought you totally picked that up from what you've learned on the watch with the always-on screen with the reduced screen refresh. And that's when I thought, wait a minute, is this how we're going to get the always-on screen for the iPhone 14?
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm
what else about
that.
the lock? Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about the lock screen?
No, really, the only other reason that it makes sense is if we think about it, if you're not a developer where you've probably always got your phone turned on, our phones, for most of the time, sit on that lock screen, right? Unless you're a really bad person and you don't lock your phone, which you should, then our phones sit on the lock screen most of the time. And if I could always, just in the corner of my desk, see that vital information, live update widgets and things like that, great. That is now sitting prominently on my desk wherever I am. That will give me a reason to start carrying it around again instead of relying on the watch. So I just wanted to add that on the lock screen. Yeah.
Speaking of that, just kind of pivoting, I know this wasn't in the notes. Not needing a watch, but they added the ability to do Fitness Plus with only your phone, or do workouts with only your phone. Did you catch that?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I did. And I was like, wait, am I hearing this right? The last thing we want, unless Apple is looking to get phones damaged and sell more phones, and maybe that's the plan, is to have people running around with their phones in their hand, right?
Right.
You know.
But yeah, I mean, I think both what you're talking about is kind of like, I think it's okay to do that, except for the whole, like, obviously you could damage your phone if you're not careful. But like, I think it's an interesting way to get people, like, maybe a little bit more interested in getting an Apple Watch, because then they're like, I want more capabilities, and then they're like, I don't know, maybe they're gonna sell
like
more
a sell up
Apple Watches
kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So something that Twitter doesn't have, they added edit and undo messages. That is awesome.
Isn't it?
That's really cool.
I've got a big note here on that, because that was one of those, like, to edit messages and undo them. And I was like, right. It's almost like that's a kind of indirect slap in the face of, well, Twitter won't do it, but we'll do it for you. You know?
Exactly.
Because how many times have you done it?
Too. Yeah, like all the time.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's it's not even just having to, like, do asterisks and be like, this is what I meant and all that. It's like, now that we have it built into messages, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and right in line with that, and maybe that's to support the next feature I wanted to mention that I think is a big deal, which is the keyboard and dictation mode kind of working together, right? Because I think I think that the dictation is really good on the phone. Even with my weird kind of British Texas accent, it works, right? And, trust me, folks, there's Texan in there. And, but every time I do it, I have to go back. It's like, but I now need to edit this bit with the keyboard. So giving them both to me in one, I mean, that to me, I know it sounds like probably not a big deal. For those of us that do that a lot, it's a big deal.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Do you use the dictation quite a bit? Because I do, especially when I'm driving. Yeah. It's really nice.
And part of that, because I was going to say, part of that is, how much I hate on-screen keyboards. So yeah. And especially when now.
Well, I was just going to say,
especially with the phone, with the watch. Now, the watch dictation for me is the only way. Although I will say that the little keyboard they give you now works really well, but that's how I got to be in this kind of dictation only kind of mode.
Right. Yeah. Same here. I was just going to say, like, especially when you're holding a 6-month-old, having dictation, like, I want to learn how to do everything on my Mac with dictation now, because it's when I have to hold the little guy, it's like, I only have one hand. So dictation is pretty, in Siri can be pretty useful in those situations.
Now the problem you're going to have, though, is that eventually he's going to start to learn these phrases. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
So you have tap to pay on iPhone. What does that mean?
That's what I was going to say. Should we talk about the Apple tap to pay? This caught me off guard a little bit, because at first I thought, wait, doesn't it already do tap to pay? And then I realized, oh, no, it doesn't. I'm so used to just putting my watch close to things or my phone close to things that I didn't even think about it. But this tap to pay, whilst, offhand I was thinking, really, how much are you going to do that? But as soon as they said, think about it as, contactless payment at places, very much like when you wave your watch in front of something, right, to pay.
Right.
And then I thought, okay, now it's making sense, But then they also moved on to these others too, which is the order tracking and the pay later. And I'm like, ooh, they're really trying to bring home the Apple Card
and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
They're doing what Apple does, which is always find a way to use one of our services to sell another one. And I'm not saying that in a critical way. It's something they've always excelled at doing, right? That's why we have the ecosystem of things. So what do you think on that? Are you going to use Tap to Pay?
I wasn't is Tap? What is Tap to Pay exactly? Maybe I'm missing something. So how's that different from Apple Pay?
Well, so as far as I can tell, it is Apple Pay, but instead of just getting your phone close to something and then unlocking with the iPhone face or something like that, it is literally tapping. They showed tapping two iPhones, but it's really tapping some other source that you're saying this is the one that's going to receive my payment, right? So the example would be go to a store. Nobody types.
So they don't need like
anymore,
a card reader anymore. They don't need like a card reader anymore.
You literally just do it. It's almost like a very super close RFID, right?
Yeah, I totally use it. Of course, I love Apple Pay.
That was me too. I was like, I'll use this. I mean, I don't know about you, but at this point, I use Apple Pay wherever it's an option because
exactly same here.
It's nice to see those few pennies coming back as well, right?
Right. Do you have an Apple Card?
I do. I got the Apple Card when they first came out because I was like, I don't know how long the actual physical card will be available, and maybe one day in the future, this thing will be worth more from a titanium value than it will for a credit card. So it's an investment.
Has it worked out? Have you used it for purchases?
I've not used the card once, like the physical card, never, because I want to be able to sell this thing for like $1 million 10 years from now on eBay as perfect condition.
You do that, nice. No, but have you used it online to buy any big stuff like your Apple products or anything?
I use it all the time. Yeah.
Okay. Well, because I forgot what the thing was that Apple had been selling and where people were upset because their card wouldn't work when they were trying to buy something from the Apple Store. Yeah, I remember that.
Interesting.
And I was just it was maybe one of the new MacBook Pros or something, or something that was really popular, and people, or iPhone maybe, iPhone 13 or something, and people were really pissed about the fact that the Apple Card didn't work, and they're like, the whole reason I bought it was for this purchase. It's so yeah. I don't know.
I remember I got my card because I was buying a MacBook Pro 15, I think it was, and I was like, I should totally get the Apple Card for this. Yeah,
right. It makes sense,
and that's the way I've done it ever since. Yeah. Plus the future investment of a lump of titanium. So
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, you're gonna make millions. I can guarantee it.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's a sure bet.
Watch the titanium market now tank.
I was gonna make some NFT or blockchain joke, but I just can't think of it right now.
You better do it while it's still around.
Right, true. Shared photo library. That's awesome. I will definitely be using that. Me and my wife, we could share our entire photo library together, which is awesome. I'm kind of curious how that's going to work out. As far as can you create multiple shared libraries with people? How does that work? What if you're I want one separate photo library for grandparents or something like that, or aunts and uncles, or for a special event. I mean, is that where a shared album might make more sense? I'm not totally clear on it. That is pretty. I'm really glad we have that now, finally.
Yeah, and this was another thing where I had to stop and think about this, because at first when they described it, I'm thinking to myself, isn't this just what shared album is, and you've given it a new name? But then it dawned on me that no, hopefully this is a bigger thing. And like you say, I can give, I know that I can give a set of permissions on albums and so on and so on. But how
Right.
much more awesome to have an entire library or libraries. And
Shared
that would
albums are
work out.
not great. Like,
No.
they're okay, but they are not. They're not easy to deal with. I am not a big fan of shared. I mean, I use them because I have to, right? I don't
Yeah.
use them because I want to.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see about this.
Yeah, I mean, I literally use them. I think, to be honest, I put photos in there, and that's it. I think that,
Yep.
it's just like,
Right.
hey, it saves me sending this to someone. Here it is,
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
You didn't want to. Was there anything you wanted to talk about the car? You had a note for the car here.
I'm
supposed to.
I do want to
We ordered Dion's story. We ordered a new van in November. And it was supposed to come in April. This is June.
Oh
we still don't have our new van with CarPlay. So we'll see. We live in the world we live in 2022.
Yeah.
At least people
Well,
can meet up in person. We just can't get anything. So, yeah.
You just
Unfortunately,
can't get
I cannot
to them
try
now.
CarPlay. Right, exactly. You can't get to them. So, yeah. I'm excited for
Here's
car.
the
It looks
thing.
awesome. I would assume you would
Yeah.
need like a brand new 2023 or 2024 model to get this stuff. Because I don't know any car that has a speedometer like that or anything like that. Do you?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, it's even further. That was going to be one of the points if you want, we'll turn this into a topic because you're going to have to wait even longer for it than that. So,
what do you mean?
I'll spin this. Let me spin this into a little section here, and then I'll go through my notes on it because that was one of the things that caught my attention. Was like, oh, okay, all right. So I'll do a little intro here. Okay, so let's talk about the car quickly because I made a couple of comments on this, but the new AirPlay to me. First of all, of course, it looks fantastic
CarPlay?
when you see the. CarPlay. Let me do it again.
You said
The
AirPlay.
new CarPlay. Did I say AirPlay? Oh, well, it's kind of the same. All right.
It is kind of the same.
So let's talk about. We'll talk about quickly about the car references, right? The CarPlay, because this I got a couple of theories and conspiracy theory. Here we go. The new CarPlay looks really good. Now, I don't have a car with CarPlay at the moment, but every car that I get in that's got it, I'm like, I really want this thing. And I want to get a new vehicle to get it. But now I might wait because this is an interesting area that I'm really not sure about this because firstly, it looks fantastic, right? What a brilliant idea. Have your whole sort of dashboard or dashboards, screens, whatever, be powered by that device. But I had a couple of thoughts here. Firstly, it almost seems too distracting to be anti-Apple, which is, we're making you look away from the windscreen, all right? So there's kind of that to it. But I'm also surprised from a legal standpoint that Apple wants to go there with this because I'm just waiting for that first time that someone's got their car and they're caught for speeding or an accident or something, and they turn around and say, the software was telling me the wrong numbers, and I thought I was doing the speed limit. And I'm surprised Apple wants to go there for that, right? Now, that said, here's my conspiracy theory on this. This is a way for Apple to test their CarPlay software for their yet unannounced Apple car without having to release an Apple car.
Well,
right?
even if they never come out with an Apple car, I think they're double dipping, right? They're like, let's test this out. If it'll give us a little bit more info into the Apple car that we built. Yeah, I buy that. Can I kind of say my own conspiracy theory?
Go for it. Oh,
or was
I love
there more?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't have anything more about the Apple car?
No, that's my theories.
Okay. My thing was they kept talking about games and hardware and how powerful these games are. I posted this on Twitter and I'm like expecting what out of all their OSs, what's their most game related OS? It's kind of, well, it is iOS in a way, but that's not on purpose. it's kind of the TV, right? And they didn't mention anything about tvOS.
No,
like there
it
was
was
very
very
little
noticeable.
about tvOS. And I was like, you have all these like new powerful chips, these new APIs. You didn't say anything about tvOS. And I'm like, are they going to like, I was kind of thinking, are they coming out with like a console or something? Like, what's the deal with this? Like, it was weird, right? Like, it was just like, I get it. Like, but, well, they even talked about the Mac in games, right? And I'm like, nobody plays games on the Mac. Like, I mean, you could, right, in theory, but like, it's not really why you buy a Mac, right? It's just like, why is there all this talk about games and the Metal 3 stuff and all this? And it's like, I don't get it. And I'm like, are they going to come out with an Apple TV with an M1 and it comes with a couple of game controllers and a lifetime subscription of Apple Arcade or something? Like, what's their deal? I don't understand it. It's like, anyways, yeah.
Yes.
That's my other conspiracy theory. That's my conspiracy theory.
Well, but here's the problem with this, Leo. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I think it's a theory based on probability, right? Because everything you just
not
said,
a conspiracy theory, but it's like I'm kind of like, my head was just kind of like, where's the Apple TV announcement? You kept talking about games and you never talked about the Apple TV, and it's like,
no, you're right.
Just put a dang M1 chip in it and call it good. Like, geez, oh Pete's. I don't get it. But that's exactly. So yeah,
it's funny that you say that though, because I thought exactly the same thing. Right? Immediately, I thought, oh, not a single mention of tvOS, and then I saw some other folks also say, oh, no mention of tvOS whatsoever, which was interesting because normally with Apple's patterns, if you sort of look to the past, anytime they don't mention something, it is because they're about to do a big rebuild on the whole, philosophy of what this hardware is and the hardware. And it does make perfect sense. I think we've all said this for years, right? The Apple TV is, even Apple said this, didn't they, at some point, is their big move into the living room. And the big move into the living room means once you've nailed the multimedia, you're now talking games. And clearly, like you say... Do you remember
when the Apple TV first came out in tvOS and they're like having all these shopping apps? It's like, that's not what people get a set-top box for.
It's not what they're going to do. Yeah. And you're right. But you also hit on something interesting too that I think is part of the problem here, because you mentioned like Metal 3 and things like that. And the immediate thing that I think I put in the notes maybe, and certainly mentioned to other folks, is, yeah, Apple, that's great, but nobody makes AAA games for the Mac, right? There's only, in fact, I was talking about
nobody cares about Metal 3.
Exactly, and there's lots of practical uses for it, but I did notice something about the sessions that I'll mention in a second.
There was one on Unity.
Yeah, there's more. That's what I was going to mention. There's more than one on Unity, which is partly Apple wanting to give a slap in the face to Epic, right? I mean, we get that, right?
That's right. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, take that Unreal Engine. But at the same time, it's like, but why would Apple mention, unless Apple really paid attention to my complaints recently about
You've been doing a lot of game stuff, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. And this was my comment, just even, I think maybe even on my stream last night. The Apple development tools for gaming, there's nothing wrong with SpriteKit. I like that. That's what we've been using for our community game on Compile Swift. And there's nothing wrong with SceneKit. But the tools to work with it are terrible, frankly, right? I mean, it's just Xcode. I can write games, and I'm by no means a huge game developer expert, but even I, with my limited understanding, can sit with Unity, the Unreal Engine, spin up games in no time at all. In Xcode, nightmare, Firstly, you've got to pray that Xcode is stable enough it doesn't crash on you, and then you've got to sort of make it sort of work. Whereas like with Unity or Unreal, I hit a play button, now I'm playing the game in the IDE, right? Perfect development environment. And that's when I noticed, like you mentioned, the Unity sessions, and I thought, hello, what's going on here? Why would Apple have sessions on somebody else's development tools unless there's something at play here? Now, we know that previously in previous years, Apple had mentioned, oh, the Metal and the M architecture for chips, and we're helping Unity out, and so on and so on. But I'll be honest with you, right? I've been trying to use Unity on the Apple architecture since then, and it crashes on me all the time. I don't even bother. I run it in Rosetta and use the Intel.
Okay.
But it's very interesting that Apple mentions this, and I even joked with one of my friends and said, "Watch out, Unity's about to be bought by Apple." You got to wonder what the deal is there.
Is Unity is that the name of the company? Or does somebody else own Unity?
I'm not sure if it is the name of the company. That's a good question. Yeah. I've never looked into it that far. But I do wonder because, are they just giving this much love to Unity to really just stick it to Epic? I mean, yeah, Apple would do that, right? But to have a competitor's tools
Unity was first
in your
announced and released. It was first announced and released in June 2005 at the WWDC.
Oh, interesting.
As a macOS game engine. So they've had a long relationship with Apple.
The long relationship then, yeah. And it works great on the Mac. I mean, I do it on my Mac. Like I say, I don't use the Silicon version on my M1 because, but I can run the Intel under Rosetta and... Okay, yeah, I can run the Intel version, and it's as good as, running it under the Silicon one. It just takes longer to start up, that's all. But it is interesting, right? Apple's got to do something about the tool set for games, because I'll be honest, I've got the Apple Arcade.
I think that's half of it. I think that's half of the equation, but I think the big part of it is just it's not super welcoming for sit down game playing. You know what I mean? They've got the market on mobile games, right? But it's still, when it comes to more intense games, there just isn't. There's great games on Apple Arcade, I guess. My kids play them. I don't. But, anyway.
Yeah. But they definitely, if they want to big head roads into the living room, they've got to definitely kick up the hardware on that Apple TV. And let's be honest, as we've seen this year from the iPad and the Mac and that when we get to talking about those OSs, it's really paid off having the same architecture on both chips, right? You can clearly see the fruition coming in this year. So why not do it to the Apple TV? They've got to have a bunch of M1 chips laying around somewhere they can throw in this thing, surely. Right?
What do they put in the Studio Pro display? The iPhone 11 chip?
I think
something why not
that,
just
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Put one of those in. I don't know what the Apple TV has. It's probably A13, A14 now. But yeah.
Something, I think, yeah. I mean, it's not...
Put an M1 chip. You put an M1 chip in everything else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And you know what? Maybe then, too, you've only got to fix one set of bugs instead of... Maybe we'll get better bug fixes,
Maybe. iPad. You ready to do iPad?
Yes. Yeah, I think this is the big one.
Funny enough, I don't really use my iPad very much. I think the kids use it. I used it during WWDC today to take notes off of while I was watching on my laptop. I don't know what an iPad is for because I love my MacBook Air so much. I don't think I'll ever go back to using an iPad. Really, I don't know what the point would be. So they they're continuing this march towards trying to make it a pro device. I'm not going to say right now what I think they're missing on the iPad to make it a truly pro device, but at least it seems like they're trying to bridge a lot of the gap between iPadOS and macOS, especially with this Stage Manager thing that.
What do you think of that?
I don't know. I don't get it. I want to use it and see exactly what it is. Is it basically like the dock, but on the side? Mm-hmm. Is that what it is?
Yeah. That is exactly my take on it. Now, I'm sure it has other functionality than that, but that was my first thought was, so you're just giving me a second dock. Okay.
Right. That's what I thought. I was just like...
Yeah.
And, the problem I have... I use the dock all the time. I have no problems with it. If anything, it's when I'm going to edit this episode and I have to drag a clip into Final Cut and I get the beach ball and I don't know what the heck is happening. Mm-hmm. That's the problems that I get. I don't ever feel like there's a problem with the user interface per se. So I'm
Yeah.
a little bit worried how that's going to work out on the iPad too. Like if we're going to all get beach balls every time we try to do something. So I don't know if this is really that big. The whole Stage Manager thing is that big of a deal, honestly. I'm
I think
kind of skeptical.
I think you're right to be skeptical. My initial take on it, having not used it, is for me it may be the thing that I've needed on iPad. So I do use my iPad quite a lot for quite a lot of things during the day, but they are mostly what I call those one-screen tasks, right? Like, I'll give you a few examples. Meetings, it's very convenient to take a Zoom meeting on an iPad because working from home, I can pick it up and walk around with it. I don't have to unplug my laptop and everything else.
Okay.
Same with using, like, Outlook for my email, Teams for team communication. All of those kind of businessy things, as I call them, work great on the iPad for me.
Okay.
Do I do development on my iPad? No, because that would be crazy.
I'm really
because
curious
I've got
to try
my laptop.
Playgrounds on there.
Now, Playgrounds is the one exception. I was doing a course the other day, and I just was using Playgrounds on my on the iPad, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. This really is my sort of coding scribble pad to make little apps or little interfaces, especially now that you can do Swift UI in Playground too. It's like, great, I can really spin things up now and do those in there. So I do it for that. And all of that said is when I'm not at my laptop. And part of the reason for that is I got my 14-inch, MacBook Pro, Max, whatever. And the only reason that I don't pick it up and to carry it around with me is because I don't want to have to unplug everything, right? Unplug the external screens and everything else. That's when I'm like, okay, I'm just going to pick up the iPad and go with me. Now, that said, part of the reason I got the 14-inch was to answer the question, do I really need my iPad? And the answer is no, of course I don't need my iPad. But I've been using it as a second, well, actually it would be it would be a third screen at this point. And it turns out that actually works out pretty good now that the whole, mouse and keyboard support is so seamless.
Right. Yeah.
But
no, I was using
iPad,
during the keynote and the State of the Union, I was using my iPad with just iPadOS 15, right? And it's on Sidecar. What was the thing that they finally got out with iOS 15?
What do they call it? Begins with C. It's not like not Confluence, but something. Coherence or something like that. Continuity, something like that. And I didn't even know. The first time I noticed it was by accident. I was sitting here and wondered, like, where did my cursor go? What's going on? And then I saw it over on my iPad, and I'm like, okay, I understand what this is now.
Universal Control. That's what it's called.
That's it. Yes, that's the one.
So I was using that during the talk, and that was great. Yeah, it's awesome. Like, to be able to take notes and watch the video. Like on the iPad, because I'd rather have that than Sidecar. I don't feel like Sidecar is really like. Yeah. I want to use the iPad as the iPad. It's not as a second monitor. So.
And the only other thing I use the Astro Pad, the little, I got it here, the little display dongle thing. So that when I was using it in where you would use Sidecar, I use this, and it's so much better still, the Sidecar thing, never use it. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to get into... so I was disappointed by two things that they didn't have. They don't have an iPad that would really make it look like a good Pro device.
Okay.
Final Cut and Logic. It's like Apple, if you want it to be a Pro... If you're going to make this a Pro device, put out software that's Pro. Show us, set an example.
But
show us what a Pro.
So firstly, I agree with you
1,000%. Sound editor or whatever.
Oh, did I lose you?
If you really expect this to be a Pro device, otherwise you're just kind of like throwing stuff out where it's like, we'll make it more like the Mac. Here you go. It's just like, yeah, but like you're not even putting out a Pro app. Like, how do you expect anybody to really take this seriously? So. I was really disappointed in that. Like that to me would be the biggest thing you could do to make the iPad. And that isn't to say that they won't come out with like 16.1 or 16.2 with a new iPad Pro and say, hey, by the way, you can now get this software exclusively on the new iPad Pro, blah, 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 with the M2 on it or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
I guess go ahead.
I was going to say, I want to add in there that, and I know you and I have spoken about this before, and certainly folks have heard me say this, I have great concerns about Apple and their, quote, pro range of software, because at this point, and I'm a Final Cut user, and I was a Logic Express user, and actually I was an Aperture user, if anyone remembers that one. And I don't think that there is the slightest bit, and maybe I'm wrong, but I have every impression that they are not the slightest bit interested in pro software anymore in favor of, and I'll just say it, the amount of money they make from consumer stuff. Which also makes me sit and go, okay, well, why are you still bothering with these Mac Pros, right? Because other than just a hugely marked up piece of hardware, that's not to criticize them and say they're not great machines, but all the other machines are just as good, right? But when it comes to the software in particular, I wish Apple would just come out and say, you know what, stop asking people, we're not interested in pro software anymore.
Well, you saw the Hollywood thing where they wrote a letter to Apple saying, are you going to continue supporting Final Cut Pro because we're worried that... Because, I mean, it is used for professional movies, for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And Logic
and it's and people are worried. Yeah, people are worried that, Apple's going to drop the ball. Apple's like, no, we're not going to drop the ball. We continue to... Yeah, so...
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from.
I guess the cynical me would say, well, yeah, of course they would say that because they don't want people to stop buying it, right?
Right.
But just like you've seen with them continuing to sell... frankly, by Apple standards, ridiculously old hardware at this point.
Yeah,
of course they're always going to take the money. I mean, I'm not being anti-Apple on this. I'm just saying, if I was Apple,
the Tim Cook way is
to
keep that one device out there as long as possible until. Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
they're actually a little bit better with that.
Everything.
They're a little bit better with that in the last couple of years, especially with some of the Macs that they stopped selling when, like the iMac Pro or the regular iMac, right? 27-inch. I mean, they actually stopped selling it, which is good. Or the iPod Touch, for that matter. But yeah, I could totally see that going on with software.
Yeah. And with the new the MacBook Airs as well, that even adds to the question of where does your iPad Pro sit in this, right? Just to go back to like you were saying about why
it's I sold my iPad Pro and I got a MacBook Air and I'm just like, this is amazing. Like, I don't miss the touchscreen. It's super portable. I'm in this opposite situation you are, where I have my Mac Studio here, and I have my MacBook Air that I could take anywhere and go anywhere with it. So yeah.
Everybody's heard me say this. I don't have one now, but the MacBook Air is the best laptop I ever owned throughout any years. Yeah.
And, okay, can we? Let's just talk about the new MacBook Air.
All right, should we get it out the way? It's
MacBook Air looks awesome.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Why are they still selling this crap MacBook Pro though? I don't understand it. It's like a new one. Yeah. It's basically the same garbage that they sold last time with a new chip inside. Right, that's what I'm saying. It's the exact, all they did is they take the same shell and they put a new chip in. Keep the stupid touch bar on it. And it's why? Just don't sell that MacBook Pro. It's just a noisier MacBook Air. That's all it is. It's I don't get it. Yeah.
And
nobody should ever buy that MacBook Pro. It's just, don't do it. Buy a MacBook Air or buy an M1 Pro or M1 Max MacBook Pro. Don't buy that garbage 13-inch. It's just it's such a stupid computer. I don't get it.
Well, and it's also, it's like you can say the same thing about why sell? And I didn't check the specs on the new 15. New 13, but why sell a Mac with 8 gig of RAM? Why sell a Mac with 512 meg drive space? I mean, why is that even a thing still? And for that matter, like the
it's probably you know what that is. That's like the people who buy, like the companies that buy like thousands and thousands of them.
Oh, sure.
That's probably what it is. Unfortunately,
I had true story. I had a MacBook Pro for a place that I worked. And it had the 512, and I think by the time I, installed everything, done a few archives and everything else, within 6 months, it was like, okay, I'm on external drives now. You need to get me a new machine, and it's like, seriously, why did you bother? But you're right. Now, interestingly though, I do want to say about the MacBook Air. To me, the MacBook Air, in some ways, no longer is the MacBook Air because it no longer has the wedge shape. Right?
Oh, true.
Which always, to me, was like that instantly is like the MacBook Air. And do you remember, of course, when it first came out and Steve took it out of the envelope and they would always quote the specs for that thinnest edge. Well, now it doesn't have that. So I was saying to someone earlier, technically, this is the first time they've released a Mac that is actually thicker than it was before. If you want to look at it that way. But we got colors and I will say the color's fantastic, but again, why didn't you do that on the MacBook Pro 13 that you just threw out the door with it?
Because it's the Apple Watch Series 3 of Macs. That's
right.
what it is.
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah,
it's like okay, people are dumb and they still buy this MacBook Pro. Let's just keep selling it with a stupid touch bar on it. I don't get it. I don't understand why they're still selling a computer.
And I didn't necessarily
M1, like that would be better than a Mac.
That's what I was going to say, right? Do the MacBook Air M1. You want to go to the 14, right?
Right.
The 13 is like, if you've got a wonky desk, buy a 13-inch MacBook Pro and shove that under the missing foot or something. I mean, why else would you have one, right?
So another thing about these is they both have a max of 24 gigs, which is pretty awesome for a MacBook Air.
That is good. Yeah. I mean, that is, again, I think for most people, right? I mean, you are well and truly in the zone of this will keep you going for a few years. No doubt about that.
I am really happy with my MacBook Air. I'm not upgrading to the M2 because it's not worth it. But that was like one of the best decisions I ever made. It's awesome.
I would venture as far as to say if someone out there is on an Intel Mac right now and they're looking to upgrade, this is exactly the one you should go for, right? Jump to a good M chip. MacBook Air, it's going to be way beyond whatever you've got now by way of an Intel chip in a Mac. For the most part.
I know that for a fact. That's exactly what I did.
There you go. Yeah.
So
Leo says.
I went from a 2015 Intel to MacBook Pro to a MacBook Air with an M1. It's night and day. Yes.
It really is. When I got my M1 Mac Mini, the original M1, and I had the 16-inch i9 MacBook Pro, blah, 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 I just couldn't believe the difference. I really couldn't. Exactly. I thought I'd made a huge mistake. As soon as I ordered the M1 Mac Mini, I was questioning, like, did I do the right thing? And within about an hour, I was like, my gosh, did I do the right thing? It was fantastic. Yeah.
I bought a Mac Mini because they're so cheap for CI and M1. And it's awesome. All right, macOS. What did you want to talk about when it came to macOS?
So let me find my notes here quickly. They're not a lot, but I think that they're... Oh, here it is. Okay.
Does that mean they fixed bugs? That's what you're saying then. They fixed bugs because there's not a lot.
I wouldn't go
That's
that far, Leo. Let's never go that far. Yeah, and because we've not had a chance to dive into Xcode yet. But no, let's talk about macOS. So macOS Ventura, great name, I think. Actually, it's just a nice name that rings off so much easier than Monterey, but that's just a weird little thing. Let's start by talking about, I got some thoughts on Stage Manager on the Mac since we covered it on the iPad.
Yeah.
Now,
let's hear it.
on the iPad, I can see a use for it, right? And I think that it's something that maybe I can use. On macOS, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely, it's like, why is this even here, right? I don't have the restrictions I have on the iPad.
If you have a 32-inch 6x Retina display like I have, it makes complete sense.
How many pixels do you need? No, I mean, exactly. At first I was trying to rationalize in my head. I'm like, okay, I like to use my Mac, the 14-inch as just the full with a built-in display, and it's fabulous. It's great. I'm so used to the full screen swipe. Works brilliantly. The last thing I want to do is have another dock on the side of the screen, right? I just don't need it. And so I do have I can't remember the name of it, but I run an app that when you move over an icon on the dock, it does show me little thumbnails of each of the windows, and I can click on one of those, right? And
I don't think you need an app for that. I thought that's a native thing.
Well, maybe it's native, but I've always had an app in the past and just run it that way. But that's at first I'm like, okay, well, this is what that dock is sort of doing, And I get it on the iPad because terrible multitasking, but there's no problem with multitasking on the Mac. At this point, my brain is swiping up with 4 fingers before I've even thought about it.
Since 1995, I know how to Alt Tab. Like it's not.
Yeah.
It's like instinct.
Yeah, it's a problem that doesn't. It's a solution that didn't need to be made for a problem that doesn't exist on the Mac. However,
but I think
I get it.
Yeah,
they're
it's a way of trying to make the iPad experience similar to the Mac experience. That's why they bring it to both.
So as we get closer, as we get closer to the great union that they said won't happen, but we all know will happen one day, we'll be trained to just seamlessly switch between devices. And I think that's the sole reason it exists, because why else would you want it?
Right, exactly. Exactly.
And it's worth touching on here because I am an Apple Mal user. So I use mal.app, not because I think it's the greatest Mal app in the world, but I use it because of the amount of third-party apps I use that have extensions for it. So I'll give you an example, right? Yeah, so I archive all my Mal into DevonThink Pro. And so I've got, there's a plugin in there, and I just hit a few keys, and it archives that Mal message over to DevonThink, and I can delete it from the Mal app, right? I know that's a terrible use case to stick with an app, but that's why I do it. But seriously, this year, right here, I'll read you the extent of my notes for the new Mal app. I can undo send. It'll give me follow-up suggestions, and they all overhaul to search. Really, Apple? This thing is so far overdue for being killed off and having a completely new Mal app, right? But that's just my thoughts. What do you think? I mean, you don't use the Mal app, right?
I use Spark. I love Spark.
Spark is the other one that I use when I'm
Spark has like Snooze. It has all these things, but probably better than what's in the Mail app coming out. So I was like, oh, cool. Like, I looked at that stuff and I'm like, cool, maybe I should give the Mail app a try again. But, like, I like Spark and it's worked out, so I have no desire to, like, switch. It's really worked out for me. Like, I like the follow-up. I like snoozing. I like all that stuff. So, like, I don't know. For me, it's just, like, cool. I think, I think that what they really want to do is have the Mail app as a platform for people to build Mac apps on top of. Like, that's why they have all that. Was it last year they added like the Mail extension API or whatever, so you can build extensions on the Mail app? I mean, I think that's really what they want to do, is they want other developers to make the Mail app better, not they don't want to have to do it themselves. So I kind of think that's what's going on.
Yeah, no, that is my use case. I'm not kidding, right? I have Spark, and I use Spark pretty much exclusively on the iPad and that because it's a great experience. I have it on the Mac as well, but I literally use, when it comes to like clearing out my inbox, I open up Mail, I go through, I use my three-finger shortcut, whatever it is, to archive off the relevant emails to Devon Think, and I close it again. I mean, I'm not kidding. That is literally what I use it for. The Mal app, for me, might as well just be considered an extension at this point. I agree with you completely. Right. Because for anyone that does, you know, like I couldn't do my day job with this Mal app. I mean, my God, you know, I just think it's one of those, like, you got to be kidding me, right? You know,
right.
So
right.
I wanted to mention it by way of saying, gosh, Apple, really, why did you even, I mean, overhaul the search. Who cares? Right? You know, I mean,
they do synonyms like saying, and misspellings for you. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, really? Okay, well that's great. I'm glad you spent 2 days working on that this year. Thank you. You know, yeah. You want to talk about Safari and the passkeys? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it's a long time coming. There's been a lot of press releases about this, like, passkey thing, whatever it was called in the press. Like the idea about replacing passwords, and that Apple has been working with Microsoft, who has been working with Google. So I'm not surprised by it. It's a long time coming. I'm happy to see it. I hope it works out, because I think passwords suck. So that's about it.
Yep, I'm right there with you on this. I had some questions at first that were then later answered in the State of the Union when we get into it. But in general, I think this is great. And I'll go there and say this as well, and I'll get slammed by some folks for sure. I'm happy to see it now. Okay, I'm happy to see it now, because over the last year, I have got more and more annoyed with 1Password, and just how badly it's working for me. And I'll be upfront and say, for years, I was a massive 1Password fan, and it's got nothing to do with this whole moving to React Native or Electron or whatever it was, and everything to do with the fact that this year it has just got to be so annoying for me to use it. Every other day I have to log in, the touch stops, and everything else, right? And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, at this point, this new password system or no password system, I'm ready for it. I'm more than ready for it.
What version of 1Password do you have?
I have actually, so my complaints are with what I'll call the current production version and the new 1Password 8. So 7 and 8 I've had complaints.
So I use 7. I haven't had as many issues as people have had. It's fine. Like, I just need a password system where I can share passwords with Mrs. Dion, and it's like...
Yep. That's what I use.
It's like, what did I have?
I don't share it with Mrs. Dion. She doesn't want my passwords, but...
What was it? No, we had... In the old days, we had Passkey or something. Not Passkey. Some other app on Windows.
I know the one you mean. I used the same thing. Can't think what it was called. Yeah.
So we had that.
I know the one you mean.
And then we didn't have anything. And then I went and I got a subscription of LastPass because I thought it was going to be... Because I just needed something. And that was horrible. That was, like, so awful.
Interesting.
And then I went with 1Password, and that's been the... Like, I don't have a lot of complaints about 1Password, not because, like, it's good or great. It's just, like, it's the best I've had so far. So I know a lot of people complain about 1Password, and I just don't have enough experience with it to be like, oh, I missed this. Like, I don't know. It works for me every time, so I can't complain too much. But
I want to be completely upfront. Yeah. Oh no, I want to be completely upfront and say that I was a total 1Password fanboy for years up until this year, and then I don't know what happened, but I just started having no end of trouble, and then it's like, oh, got to log in again and log in, and then like unlock with the watch that doesn't work, and you know when you get to that point where you're like, oh, geez, and the huge factor for me here is, number one, I have so much data in there it's almost impossible to move away from. But number two, I do need it on Windows. I need something on Windows, and this works pretty great.
Isn't there like I don't use Windows hardly, but isn't there like iCloud password manager thing?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at that. Again,
somebody who uses Windows, let us know.
Yeah,
because
please.
The last time I was looking at my wife's computer, there is an iCloud app, right, for cloud sharing files and stuff. And I thought I saw something about sharing passwords in Windows.
Oh, maybe.
But I'm not so sure.
That's
Well,
interesting.
not sharing passwords, excuse me. Keeping your password. So like not necessarily me sharing my password with her, or her with me, but rather she could have passwords. Her keychain is accessible on Windows, is what it looked like to me.
I got you.
I could be wrong.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the big thing for this new system will be adoption, right? We need if it works completely at the OS
I think people
level,
want
great.
it. And I think big companies want it. Like, they don't want to do passwords. Passwords suck. So I think it's to everybody's incentive that we switch to this. So
So I have one thing that it's a Sherlock for actually software I'm using right now to talk to you over this camera.
Yay, Sherlock
but I'm
of
also
the year.
happy to see it. Yeah. But the continuity camera.
That goes to my question. I want to ask you a question.
Okay. All right.
How much is that clip thing going to be? $100, $200 for the little iPhone clip? Come on. What's your guess?
I'm going to say, I'm going to do it the marketing way. $99.99. Less than $100.
I think you're right. But
come on.
I mean, that looks like something that Apple's going to overprice, and everybody's going to go on Amazon buy the third-party one because it works just as well. I think that's exactly what that looks like.
But I want to throw it back at you now and say, admit it though. As soon as you saw it, you thought, I want one of those.
That desk view, that top desk view is pretty cool. Do we have an idea on what iPhones it works for? And what
I'm assuming.
What's the combo that you need?
Well, I'm assuming anything that's supported by iOS 16, but that's just a complete assumption on my part.
Okay. Yeah, right? I would be curious about that.
Now, the reason that I like it, well, the reason that I'm interested in this, as I sit here with all of my, as you know and as others know, I'm a photographer for many years, so, way too many cameras. As I sit here with my ridiculously expensive cameras and thinking to myself, that's all going to be done away with my iPhone, is actually because of the ability to use that depth data and just do a better blur on the background and things like that. To me, that's one of those things. It's that's a big deal, right?
That looks really cool.
In. Yeah.
If anybody's watched these episodes lately with my Logitech Brio, I finally figured out how to do manual focus on this thing so it doesn't blur me out in the middle of an episode. So,
you did? I have one of those. I have a Logitech Brio I use for my streaming. And the key, maybe you found it, is to install the Brio software, sadly. And then you've got
which is
complete
unfortunately
control.
Not native control, but whatever.
Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I like the Logitech Brio. It does 4K, so all that stuff is really
absolutely.
Cool.
But software.
So I have no interest in putting my iPhone on top of my Pro Display, I guess. It just isn't really a thing I would do. But I do think it's helpful to a lot of people. I think it's about time. Maybe they're just giving up on the studio display camera and they're like, screw it, just use your darn iPhone and shut up about the poor quality of our new camera. That's probably what it is.
Okay, so I'm gonna twist that slightly, and I'm gonna go maybe a little bit conspiracy theory, maybe just a little bit, but I'm more along the lines of Apple thinking here, right?
Okay.
We all know that on these laptops, on the iPads, and especially on these new displays, they could totally put in the cameras that they have on the iPhones, right? I mean, they can do it. But why would they when they can make you buy an iPhone to use with the display? But
that's true.
Yes, isn't it a shame that all of these super expensive displays, these gorgeous laptops and everything else, even with the latest range of laptops, get let down by just having a frankly subpar camera in them these days? And I don't get that. I don't get the thinking behind that,
So to answer the question, you need a Mac with an Apple Silicon chip or an AMD Radeon Pro or Vega with an Intel or an Intel UHD. So I'd assume a pretty top-end Intel Mac and anything with Apple Silicon to use continuity camera. For the continuity camera on the iPhone, hold on, I want to make sure this is right, because so you can use the 10R and up for the iPhone camera. So no 10, no 8, no 8 Plus.
Okay.
No, probably SE2.
That's fair, though.
I don't know.
I mean, that's still going back quite a ways.
The ultra wide camera is only available on the 11 and up. So you would lose that, and then if you go to the 12 and up, then you also get the studio light and portrait. You also have portrait mode on anything that uses portrait mode, which is 10R and later, and the iPhone SE 2, so and later. So yeah, it seems like basically if you have an iPhone 8 or an iPhone 10, you cannot use it as a camera for your Mac.
I think that's pretty fair.
But pretty much any Mac. I mean, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's still going back. Well, we can always. I mean, this is always an easy argument, but that's going way further back than any other platforms would, right? So really, what that's saying to me is,
if you're an Android, it's like it works to that old model, but then it crashes 90% of the time. So,
exactly. Yeah. So, and it's saying, hey, next time you buy an iPhone, because you will upgrade at some point, keep that old one if you want to just use it as a webcam.
That's true. Right? I did just buy an iPhone SE2, so I could technically use it for this.
Oh, yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So I actually think for once Apple may have done us somewhat of a favor, in as much as Apple does. Yeah. Yeah. But actually, perhaps the bigger thing there may be using things like portrait mode and that works so well on the iPhone. I'd love to have those on my webcam. So I'll just throw that in there. Yeah.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah, I wish I had that on the webcam. I wish they'd sell just cameras with just the portrait mode. I would totally use that. Yeah. Agreed. Well, I mean, this webcam, I can swap it out for an iPhone holder, so technically I could try it out.
Oh, there you go.
We'll see. Maybe it's 7 months when the release is out. I'll try it out.
All right, folks. So that's it. We have covered the keynote here. Absolutely make sure that you check out the continued discussion for the State of the Union to really dive into the tech tools and everything else. So with that, Leo, thank you again so much for joining me again this year. Absolutely tell everybody where we can find you.
Breakdigit.com is my business. All my podcast episodes and videos and everything is up on there. The name of the podcast is EmpowerApps.show. I'm on YouTube at Breakdigit. Twitter, I'm Leo G. Dion. Find me on there. I think that's everything, right?
Yeah, and you've had some absolutely wonderful interviews, by the way, on the Empower App Show. I've been avid listener to all of those, and
Thank you.
Been some great interviews.
Yeah. I do want to plug one episode I did with Sarah Grutter, a doctor who helps run the Apple Developer Academy that Tim mentioned at the beginning in Detroit, at the beginning of WWDC. So if you're interested in learning more about the Apple Developer Academy, definitely check that episode with Sarah out. That was awesome to have her on. She was great.
Yeah, and I'll put a link in the show notes for that. It was just fantastic. Yeah, as with all the other ones, but I will definitely put a link in there for that, because more and more this year I've found so many people who have started that I want to get started. Well, this is a perfect thing for you, So So Leo, thank you. You can of course find me at compilerswift.com or peterwhittam.com, and all of my stuff is out there and all the links and everything else. So that's it. Thank you, everybody. And we will have lots more discussions and videos and everything else. And we will see you very shortly in the next one. Be sure to jump over to Empower Apps. Go check out the next one. Find out all the gruesome details about the APIs and Xcode and everything else. We'll see you there. Thank you.